The little cafe on the corner of Willow Street was quiet that morning, filled with the soft hum of jazz and the aroma of freshly baked croissants. Mia had worked there for 3 years, greeting every customer with a tired but kind smile. Life hadn't been easy since college. Dreams had withered under bills and responsibilities. As she wiped a table, the doorbell chimed and a familiar voice ordered a black coffee. Her heart skipped. The tone, the confidence, the calm, it couldn't be. She turned slowly and her world froze. Standing there, dressed in an impeccable suit and holding a briefcase, was Daniel Hayes, her first love, the boy who once promised her the world before vanishing without a word. For a moment, time seemed to rewind to those golden college days when Daniel and Mia would sit under the oak tree, sketching dreams of their future. But now his presence felt distant, unreachable. He looked older, more refined, with the sharp aura of someone used to power. "Mia?" he said softly, his voice carrying both shock and nostalgia. Her name on his lips sent shivers down her spine. She forced a polite smile, hiding the storm inside. "It's been a while, Daniel," she said. He nodded, but there was a flicker of guilt in his eyes, a memory that hadn't faded. She took his order, pretending nothing had changed, yet every second felt like the past colliding violently with the present. As Daniel sat by the window, sipping his coffee, he couldn't help but steal glances at her. The years hadn't dimmed her light. If anything, she seemed even more resilient. He remembered the night he left town, the deal that forced him overseas, and the letter he'd written but never sent. Mia had been his anchor, his reason, but ambition had been his curse. Now, sitting in that humble cafe, he realized how empty success felt without the one person who had truly understood him. When she brought the check, he hesitated, slipping a business card beneath it. "If you ever want to talk," he said quietly, "I owe you more than an apology." That night, Mia sat in her small apartment staring at the card. Daniel Hayes, CEO, Hayes Global Enterprises. The name alone sent a chill down her spine. He wasn't just successful, he was famous. Every magazine had featured him at some point, the man who built an empire from nothing. And yet, he'd once been the boy who shared noodles with her after class, who'd laughed when she dreamed of opening her own cafe. She tossed the card aside, whispering to herself, "People like him don't come back for people like me." But deep down, a small spark of curiosity refused to die. Days turned into weeks. Daniel started visiting the cafe regularly, sometimes alone, sometimes with his assistant. Each time he'd sit at the same corner table, always ordering the same black coffee, always trying to catch her eye. Finally, one rainy evening, he broke the silence. "You still make that caramel latte I used to love?" he asked. She laughed softly. "You remember that?" He smiled. "I remember everything." For the first time, she saw the man behind the billionaire, a boy who still carried the weight of unfinished promises. And for a fleeting moment, the walls she'd built began to crack. They started talking after hours, reminiscing about old times, professors, friends, dreams they once shared. But Daniel's visits drew whispers. Some customers recognized him, snapping photos, turning her quiet cafe into a spectacle. One morning, Mia's boss pulled her aside. "You can't keep talking to him here, it's bad for business." Humiliated, she avoided Daniel for days. When he finally found her in the alley behind the cafe, she looked up with tears in her eyes. "Why now, Daniel? Why after all these years?" His answer was quiet, sincere. "Because I never stopped thinking about you, and I came back to make things right." He told her the truth, about the sudden opportunity that had forced him overseas, about how his investors demanded he cut all ties to focus on his company. He'd chosen ambition over love, thinking he could return once he'd made it. But time had slipped through his fingers. "I thought success would fill the emptiness," he said. "It didn't. It just made me realize what I lost." Mia wanted to be angry, but the sincerity in his eyes disarmed her. She saw the boy she'd loved, hidden behind the man the world admired. Still, forgiveness wasn't easy. Some scars take more than apologies to heal. One evening, Daniel invited her to dinner, not in a fancy restaurant, but in a quiet park where they once used to sit. He brought takeout, just like old times. As they ate, he pulled out a small velvet box. "I don't expect you to say yes," he said, opening it to reveal a golden key. "It's to your cafe." She looked confused. He smiled gently. "I bought the building. It's yours now. You once dreamed of owning your place. Now you do." Tears welled in her eyes as she realized what he had done. "You can't just buy forgiveness," she whispered. "I know," he said softly, "but maybe I can earn it." Over the next few months, they rebuilt what time had broken, not as lovers rushing into the past, but as two people learning each other anew. Daniel helped her renovate the cafe, turning it into a community hub for local artists and dreamers. Mia watched as the billionaire everyone admired became a man who swept floors, served tables, and laughed with strangers. The city started calling it the Billionaire Café, but for them, it was simply a place of redemption. Slowly, laughter replaced regret, and love found its way back, not through grand gestures, but through quiet mornings shared over coffee. On the cafe's reopening day, the place was filled with people, old customers, reporters, friends. Mia stood by the counter, radiant in a simple dress, while Daniel gave a small speech. "Years ago," he said, "I lost something priceless chasing everything else. Today I found it again." He looked at her, and the crowd melted away. After the applause, he leaned closer and whispered, "Do you still believe in second chances?" She smiled, eyes glistening. "Only if you promise not to disappear this time." He took her hand, and together, under the soft hum of jazz and the smell of coffee, the first love they thought was lost began again, stronger, wiser, and beautifully real. Months passed, and the cafe flourished beyond anything Mia had ever dreamed. Tourists came not because it was owned by a billionaire, but because it felt alive. Every cup of coffee held a story, every wall carried warmth. Daniel often worked quietly in the back, not as a CEO, but as a man rediscovering joy in small things. Mia would catch him laughing with kids, fixing chairs, or taking photos of the sunrise through the window. People whispered, "Isn't that Daniel Hayes?" But he never cared. To him, those quiet mornings beside Mia meant more than boardrooms or headlines. The cafe had become a sanctuary, a place where success met simplicity, and where love, once broken by time, was now healed by grace. Yet, deep inside, both of them knew their story was only beginning. One winter evening, as snowflakes dusted the cafe windows, Daniel invited Mia to sit with him after closing. The soft hum of the heater and the scent of cinnamon wrapped around them like a memory. He reached into his coat pocket and placed a small velvet box on the table. "I once gave you a promise," he said, his voice steady but trembling with emotion. "But I never gave you forever." Mia's breath caught as he opened the box, revealing a simple gold ring, elegant, not extravagant, just like their love. "I don't need boardrooms or billions," Daniel continued. "I need you here, every morning, every night, every cup of coffee we'll ever pour together." Tears welled in her eyes as she whispered, "Yes." Yes, 1,000 times. Outside, snow fell harder, and for the first time in years, the cafe lights stayed on late, glowing not just with warmth, but with the promise of two hearts finding home again. Months later, the cafe had become more than just a cozy stop for locals. It was a sanctuary built from love and redemption. Daniel often arrived early, rolling up his sleeves to help Mia bake muffins, while she brewed his favorite espresso, humming softly to old love songs that once played during their youth. The regular customers noticed the change, the laughter that echoed from behind the counter, the way Daniel looked at Mia like she was the only person in the room. One evening, a young couple entered and asked how they managed to stay so in love. Mia smiled and replied, "We didn't stay in love, we found our way back to it." Daniel placed his hand over hers and added, "Sometimes, love takes a detour through pain to remind you what's worth fighting for." And as the cafe lights shimmered against the twilight, their story became a quiet legend. Two souls who turned lost chances into a second beginning. On the anniversary of reopening the cafe, Daniel surprised Mia by inviting everyone from their old neighborhood, the same people who had watched them fall apart years ago. The tables were adorned with flowers, the scent of cinnamon filled the air, and the walls glowed with the warmth of soft fairy lights. When Mia entered, she gasped. On one wall hung a large framed photo of the cafe's name, Second Brew, written in Daniel's handwriting with a tiny heart in place of the dot on the I. As she turned, Daniel knelt beside her, not with a diamond ring, but with the key to the cafe in his hand. "I once gave you my heart and lost it," he said softly, his voice trembling. "Now I want to give it to you again. This time, forever." Tears streamed down Mia's cheeks as she whispered, "You never lost it, Daniel. It was always here, waiting for you to come home." The room erupted in applause as the couple embraced, sealing a promise that love, when real, always finds its way back, no matter how many years have passed. As the applause faded, the cafe seemed to hold its breath, the air heavy with the emote.